Every single team in every single era of NBA history has to go through this, a rebuild. Usually, it consists of blowing up your team. Well, maybe not completely, but getting rid of or losing your core players and trying to go in a different direction. Whether it's through relying on draft choices to hopefully develop and carry you in the future, or relying on trades and signing players to retool your roster. We always hear the stories of success, teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder back in the early 2010s, or the Golden State Warriors a few years later. These teams went from being at the bottom of the barrel to absolute powerhouses. On the other hand, we rarely hear about the times when rebuilds turn into a catastrophe, yet it's way more frequent than the success stories. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and here are 8 times NBA rebuilds went horribly wrong. The Detroit Pistons, the Josh Smith experiment. In 2013, the Pistons' reign of dominating the Eastern Conference has been long gone. At this point, they were in the midst of a rebuild, and it wasn't looking too shabby. Greg Monroe was leading the team, looking like he could be a future star. Andre Drummond and Chris Middleton were rookies, and Brandon Knight wasn't that terrible yet. Essentially, they had the pieces, they had some talent that could be developed, so the future was looking okay. But then, everything changed when Josh Smith came. In the summer of 2013, the Pistons swung for the fences and took a chance by signing him. As a result, the following season was one of the most egregiously pitiful years the Pistons have ever had. Smith was at the forefront of this. He led the team in scoring with the worst efficiency out of any leading scorer in the league. In fact, his true shooting percentage of 46% was the worst out of any player who attempted at least 15 shots a game. Now, their record remained the same, which isn't actually good if you think about it, because Smith was now eating up a huge chunk of their salary cap and taking away touches from every other young player. By the way, the contract he signed was for 4 years, $54 million. It was a lot of money back then. But he was so bad that he had to get waived just 1 year after signing the deal. He didn't get waived with the amnesty clause though. They stretched out his contract and ended up paying him until 2020, 6 years after the Pistons got rid of him. This Smith signing set them back for years, and the Pistons could not recover from it. Oh, and let's not forget, the Pistons also signed Brandon Jennings in the same offseason as Josh Smith, who became the second leading scorer on the team, shooting a whopping 37% from the field. Good job. The Chicago Bulls, the Elton Brand trade. In Brand's first 2 seasons in Chicago, he averaged 20 and 10, one of the best young players the NBA has seen in a long time. However, in the 2001 draft, the Bulls had a chance to get a young high school center who was considered to be a very good prospect, Tyson Chandler. So out of nowhere, the Bulls traded their young, budding star, Brand, to the Clippers for the 18-year-old Chandler, the second pick of the draft. Additionally, 2 spots later in the draft, they used their own number 4 pick to take Eddie Curry, another high school prospect. Now, instead of Brand, they were banking on 2 high school centers to carry them. Curry was playing well for a little while, but it didn't last long, and Chandler would be useless on the Bulls as he didn't get better until later in his career. The team took a while to get back on track, but they were able to do it without those 2. The Phoenix Suns, the 3-headed point guard. Previously, in the 2013-14 season, the Suns shocked everybody by winning 48 games, just barely missing the playoffs. That season even surprised the Suns organization themselves, and perhaps it was too enticing for them to not do something. Hence why in the 2014 offseason, they went all in, signing Isaiah Thomas. With Bledsoe coming back from an injury and Dragic continuing his excellent play, the Suns now sported a 3-headed dragon, a 3-point guard rotation that was, well, it was questionable. Now they expected to make the playoffs and go even further. But in reality, this trio did not work out. It was clear that all of them wanted their own spotlight, and Dragic was pissed off because they had a good thing going, but it got ruined. By the 2015 trade deadline, Isaiah Thomas already got traded to Boston, where he flourished. And Dragic also demanded a trade due to frustrations with the front office. As he stated, "I don't trust them anymore. It happens too many times." Then, a few years later, Bledsoe also wanted out. This was quite the tumultuous period for the Suns. And while things are looking better with Booker, the terrible management and decision-making caused such a long playoff drought. And it's still taking a long time to get back on track. The Brooklyn Nets, the trade with the Celtics. Speaking of taking a long time getting back on track, welcome to the Nets. In 2013, this colossal trade happened. As you can see, the Nets got KG, Paul Pierce, and Jason Terry to add onto their roster that already included Deron Williams and Joe Johnson. The problem is, everyone was old as dirt. In return, the Nets gave up a bunch of players that didn't matter, but most importantly, 3 future first-round picks and a pick swap in 2017. The 2014 pick became James Young. The 2016 pick became Jaylen Brown. The 2017 pick became Jason Tatum. And the 2018 pick, they used it in a trade to get Kyrie Irving. While the Nets, on the other hand, got like one playoff run with Pierce and Garnett on the roster, and then they got crushed by Miami. The funny thing is, if you look back at all the reactions to this trade, everyone thought the Celtics got robbed. I mean, look at these tweets from 2013. Jeez. Of course, this trade set them back for a long time. But luckily, the Nets overhauled their front office and made some good decisions in recent years to try and make the best out of having such a small number of picks. The Minnesota Timberwolves, Kevin Love. Arguably the worst feeling a basketball fan could have is seeing your team waste away the talents of a superstar, or not trying hard enough to build around that superstar. That's what happened to Kevin Love. Love would get drafted in 2008, their best draft choice since Kevin Garnett. All they need now is to sign solid players and continue making solid draft choices. But that didn't happen. In the following years, they would draft guys like Johnny Flynn, Wesley Johnson, Derek Williams, all of whom amounted to nothing and became busts. It was quite sad because there was a time when the Wolves and the Thunder were seen as the 2 teams of the future. With a young Kevin Love, they finally got their superstar. But as the Thunder continued their string of excellent draft picks, the Wolves did the complete opposite. Almost every one of their picks between Love and Karl Anthony Towns were pretty damn bad. As a result, they wasted Love's best years, and when they finally got some good young talent, Love was already gone. It didn't help that David Kahn made a name for himself for being arguably the most incompetent GM of that era. The Sacramento Kings, DeMarcus Cousins. Continuing the whole wasting away a superstar's prime, there's no better example than DeMarcus Cousins in Sacramento. Of course, we can't ignore his flaws when he was younger. A quick-tempered, committed a ton of fouls, turned the ball over a lot, got ejected a lot. There were a lot of issues with his on-court play. But he was still incredibly talented. Not as talented as a guy like Anthony Davis, who, by the way, he should probably be on this list too, but the Pelicans did have some good years with him. Unfortunately, just like with the Wolves and Love, the Kings did not make the playoffs a single time during the Cousins era. In fact, they never had a winning season with him. It didn't help that his right-hand man, Tyreke Evans, collapsed after his rookie season, and the Kings had no idea what to do with him. They mismanaged his minutes, his position, and overall, the team was a huge mess, even more disorganized than the Wolves during the same time frame. 6 seasons later, with no substantial progress, Cousins got traded, and the Kings started to rebuild all over again. The Charlotte Bobcats, Kemba Walker. From a raw talent standpoint, maybe Kemba isn't the guy who can carry a team by himself, He took a while to develop into the star we all know and love, but we can't ignore the horrible management of the Charlotte Hornets and Charlotte Bobcats. A lot of it has to do with Michael Jordan, of course. Everything from his terrible draft choices to terrible contract decisions and trades, it's been a rough ride. Besides the short tenure of Al Jefferson and occasionally Nick Batum, Kemba rarely had any help. And even though he wanted to stay, the front office felt like he wasn't worth the max contract he's looking for. So, to top it all off, they completed a sign and trade to send Kemba to Boston in exchange for freaking Terry Rozier, and then they signed him to a massive deal. Kemba's a great player, a great guy who deserved to be on a winning team, but it felt like he was all alone. And at number 1, the New York Knicks currently. In recent years, the Knicks have been pretty damn bad. We all know about the whole Porzingis saga. He didn't show up to a meeting with Phil Jackson, and then he criticized the front office while he himself was injured and couldn't play, and finally, he demanded a trade. What's really been hurting the Knicks, though, has been the lack of player development from their other young prospects. Frank Ntilikina, we had high hopes for him, but he hasn't gotten much better. Kevin Knox, decent rookie season, but he regressed and now his role is very unclear, even getting benched for most of his sophomore year. Elfrid Payton? Meh. Dennis Smith Jr.? His skills apparently vanished when he came to New York, just like everyone else. Thankfully, Mitchell Robinson brings a small sliver of hope to the franchise. And RJ Barrett, maybe if he develops properly, that would be nice. I know the Knicks have been the laughingstock for a long time, but they deserve some good things. Regardless, after the whole Porzingis ordeal and the post-Melo era, it's been a whole lot of uncertainty and disappointment. I'm hoping, for my own sanity, that the Knicks will be great again, at some point in my lifetime. Anyway, that's all, folks. Those were 7 times a rebuild went horribly wrong. And to this day, you could still see the effects of many of these failed rebuilds. What other times can you think of? What other teams mishandled their rebuild, and it haunted them for years afterwards? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.